Imagine you find a completely legal, or, well, maybe entirely deceptive, but legal-ish way to save, say, $10,000 in your tax return.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And, the government will absolutely never know, and your friends, they're all telling you, everyone is doing it.
Right. It's just the norm.
Exactly. And honestly, that kind of money would make a huge difference in your life right now.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you take the shortcut?
It's a heavy question.
It really is. So today's deep dive explores the surprisingly deep mechanics behind that exact moment of temptation.
Yeah, we are looking at a very, very specific collision here between ancient moral philosophy and, modern financial frustration,
Right.
which is something I think a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. And we have two incredibly interesting sources today to help us unpack this, right?
We do, yeah. So the first is a comprehensive essay, and it unpacks specific Quranic principles regarding taxation, state authority, and personal conduct. And then the second source, which I love, it grounds this theory in total reality. It's a modern discussion thread where individuals are actively trying to apply these ancient ethical texts to their present-day financial portfolios.
Which is fascinating, bringing that ancient text into like a modern internet forum.
Exactly.
So the central dilemma we're unpacking today is, well, it's highly provocative, especially given how most of us feel about taxes.
Yeah.
The question is, if a government imposes unnecessary, burdensome, or just flat-out unjust taxes, is it permissible to lie on your tax return to reduce that burden?
Right, because nobody likes feeling cheated.
Exactly, especially when, strict honesty might actually put you at a severe financial disadvantage compared to your competitors who are definitely cutting corners.
Yeah, and we are going to analyze the framework of these texts completely impartially to understand the underlying logic. Because, their answer to that dilemma is direct and unequivocal. The answer is just no.
Just a hard no.
A hard no. Deception is not permitted. Falsifying details on a tax return, even if you firmly believe the taxing authority is completely unjust, it is strictly forbidden under this framework.
Okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, someone might just shrug and say, well, obviously a religious text says don't lie.
Right, like that's the basic rule.
Yeah, but the architectural reasoning the source builds to get to that no is incredibly layered. It doesn't just say lying is bad. It redefines what truth actually is in a legal context.
It does. It establishes that truthfulness is an unconditional, fixed virtue. So it cites verse 33.70 from the text, which demands that believers, quote, say the right word.
Say the right word.
Right. And the commentary attached to this verse is vital here. It defines the right word as speech that exactly conforms to the facts. It must be based on factual analysis and presented with the support of solid arguments.
So it completely eliminates the gray area of the educated guess.
Oh, complete.
So let's say you're a freelancer, right? And you categorize a dinner with a friend as a business expense because, well, you vaguely talked about your industry for 5 minutes.
Right, we've all been there. You bring up work over appetizers.
Yeah, exactly. And you might tell yourself, well, technically it was networking, but under this definition, because it doesn't exactly conform to the primary fact of the dinner, it fails the test.
It fails completely. The text actually categorizes that kind of rationalization as a devious utterance.
A devious utterance.
Yeah, that is the specific term used in the commentary. A devious utterance is speech based on guesses, conjectures, or expressing a self-serving opinion rather than reporting objective facts.
Wow.
And the source explicitly labels someone who engages in this kind of speech as a hypocrite.
A devious utterance. So the text isn't treating a fudge on a spreadsheet as a simple administrative error. It's just treating it as a fundamental character flaw.
Exactly. The standard of truth here is totally inflexible regarding the audience. It doesn't matter who is asking for the information. The truth is an absolute value.
But wait, what if the audience is hostile? What if the government is genuinely corrupt, they waste tax dollars, and you view them as an active adversary to your business?
Right, the natural human instinct is to fight back.
Yeah. If they're acting unjustly toward you, why do you owe them the purity of the right word?
Well, the text anticipates that exact human instinct. It points to verse 5.8 as the controlling rule in hostile situations. The text explicitly states, "Do not let your enmity for others turn you away from justice."
Okay, that makes sense. It's like drinking poison and hoping your enemy dies,
That's a great way to put it.
Because the bitterness you feel toward a corrupt government might be totally justified. But if you let it dictate your actions, You just end up corrupting your own system. The text is demanding that justice survive the grievance.
Which, as you can imagine, requires an immense amount of discipline. The commentary warns that emotional bias against an opponent is a named threat to correct judgment.
Right.
It defines justice in this specific context as meting out to a person the treatment they actually deserve. So no more and no less.
So if the law dictates you owe a certain amount, using deception to pay less is unjust, regardless of your personal enmity toward the entity collecting it.
Exactly, even if you hate them.
Wow. So if honesty is an entirely internal standard that doesn't depend on the character of the tax collector, that completely changes how we have to look at external commerce.
It really does. And what's fascinating here is that the essay actually maps this internal mindset to a very physical, ancient marketplace scenario to explain the mechanics of fairness.
Oh, right, the scales.
Yeah, it maps this modern tax dilemma directly to Surah 83 in the Quran, which condemns those who deal in fraud. Specifically, it focuses on the concept of giving short measure.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. How did that work?
Well, in an ancient agrarian economy, a merchant who wanted to cheat didn't need some, complex scheme or offshore account. They just tweaked the physical scales.
Just a little adjustment.
Right. When they bought grain from a farmer, they ensured their scale was perfectly balanced to receive every single ounce they were owed.
Naturally.
But when they sold that grain to a customer, they secretly rigged the scale to give slightly less than the customer paid for.
So they demanded a flawless transaction when they were receiving, but they manufactured a flawed transaction when they were giving.
Exactly. And the commentary calls this specific double standard the seed of all rights violation. Now, if we carry that ancient marketplace logic into the modern digital tax system, the essay argues that undertaxing yourself by faking details is structurally identical to rigging that physical scale.
Because you still expect the full measure of the state's benefits.
Yes, precisely.
I mean, you expect the fire department to show up if your house is burning. You expect the roads to be paved so your delivery trucks can run. You demand the full measure of society's infrastructure, but you are intentionally giving short measure on your obligation to fund it.
Yeah, it is the exact same rigged scale, just executed in a digital spreadsheet instead of a grain market.
That is such a striking image.
And the test of fairness provided in the source is perfectly symmetrical. The logic is, you would never tolerate a client paying you less than what they owe by secretly concealing facts from you.
Never. I'd be furious.
Right. Therefore, you cannot apply a different standard when you are the entity that owes the money. The framework states a person should want for others whatever they want for themselves.
I have to push back on this, though, a little bit.
Sure.
Because let's look at how modern finance actually works.
Yeah.
I mean, if I hire an aggressive accountant to comb through the tax code and find a loophole, I'm not rigging a physical scale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing by the rules they wrote.
Right. It's just business argument.
Yeah. If there's a massive legal gray area in the tax code and I exploit it to save my business money, how is that giving short measure? Isn't that just being financially savvy?
So the source directly challenges that modern defense. It argues that no matter how complex or elaborate an external legal code is, it can never successfully police someone who is determined to escape it.
Which is true. People always find a way.
They do. And the commentary on Chapter 5 states that it is finally a person's intention which debars them. The very psychology of seeking a loophole reveals a corrupt intention.
Meaning, you can write a 10,000-page tax code to close every single gap, but you can't legislate someone's internal motivations.
Exactly. External laws are just boundaries. True compliance, according to this framework, doesn't come from fear of an audit. It relies on a concept called taqwa.
Taqwa.
Yeah, which translates roughly to a God-conscious mindset, or a deeply calibrated internal moral compass. If your mind is constantly seeking ways to reduce the tax by faking, which, by the way, is a direct quote from the modern discussion thread, you are engaging in the exact mindset the commentary condemns.
Ah, I see.
You are expending cognitive energy looking for justifications instead of honoring the true spirit of the law.
So even if you successfully locate a legal gray area, the sheer intention to evade your true obligation violates the standard.
Right.
The text moves the camera entirely away from the external act like you versus the government and points it directly inward at the individual's mind.
It frames honesty not as a transactional agreement between a citizen and a state, but as a voluntary self-rule. The essay introduces the concept of the trust, or amana.
The trust.
Yes. The commentary on verse 33.72 explains that a human being accepted the trust, meaning they have to apply the rule of justice to themselves just as strictly as they expect it applied to others.
For anyone listening to this deep dive who values clear thinking, who prides themselves on being rational and perceptive, this next part of the text is the ultimate warning. We are moving from the act of lying to the actual long-term cognitive cost of the lie.
Yes, the internal toll. The source makes a profound psychological observation here. It says, dishonesty to others begins as dishonesty to oneself.
Right.
When someone intends to go against the truth, they are initially stopped by an invisible representative, their conscience. To commit the fraud, they first have to silence that internal voice.
They have to convince themselves that the lie is justified, like the government wastes it anyway, or everyone else in my industry is writing off these personal vacations. I have to do it just to stay competitive.
Exactly. You have to build a narrative. And every time a person successfully rationalizes that deceit, the text argues the cost of the lie drastically exceeds whatever financial gain they achieved. The context warns that these repeated deceptions cause profound internal damage. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the essay translates a concept from Surah 83.14, which says, quote, their own deeds have cast a veil over their hearts.
A veil over their hearts.
Yes, which we can understand today as epistemic damage.
Epistemic damage.
Yeah.
Meaning you are actively damaging your own ability to acquire knowledge and perceive reality.
Precisely. The habit of falsifying details, of living in loopholes and rationalizing deceit, the commentary calls these repeated small injustices.
Right.
And over time, these small injustices accumulate. They corrode your judgment. When you constantly train your brain to blur the lines between truth and fiction for financial gain, your brain loses the ability to distinguish truth in other areas of your life.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Let's unpack the currency of this transaction, because it's a terrifying concept.
It really is.
You fudge the numbers and you save, say, $1,000 on your taxes. But the transaction fee for that $1,000 is your own grip on reality. You are paying a financial penalty with your conscience as the currency. You are voluntarily putting a veil over your own heart, blinding yourself to the truth, just to save a fraction of your revenue.
The ultimate victim of your deception isn't the government treasury. I mean, the treasury will survive your missing $1,000.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
The victim is your own cognitive health.
But this brings up a massive, highly practical question. Let's say the environment you are operating in is genuinely oppressive. Let's say a new tax law passes that is completely unjust. It targets your specific industry, and it is actively crushing your family business.
Right. A worst-case scenario.
Exactly. If you absolutely cannot lie to get out of it, what are you supposed to do? Does this framework demand that you just sit there, keep perfect records, and quietly let your livelihood be destroyed?
Not at all. The framework does not demand passive victimhood, but it strictly forbids deceptive resistance. The texts actually offer highly principled, lawful alternatives to oppression.
Okay, like?
The Quranic options outlined in the essay include sabr, which is patience and endurance, as well as lawful protest and candid argument.
Right. The text mentions utilizing wisdom and good counsel, right?
Yeah.
From verse 16.125.
Yes, exactly. You are encouraged to pursue justice through proper, transparent channels. You can organize, you can argue your case honestly, you can lobby for legal change, but you cannot use deception as a tool against an unjust authority because doing so inflicts that epistemic damage on yourself.
Which perfectly sets up the second source we are exploring today, the modern discussion thread. This is where we see someone wrestling with this exact problem in real time.
Yes, it's such a practical example.
The thread revolves around the heavy burden of real estate investments and property taxes, right?
Yeah. Real estate is a highly visible, highly taxed asset. And the individuals in this chat are dealing with property taxes that feel incredibly oppressive. And the temptation to fake the details, perhaps by hiding rental income or manipulating property values, is just incredibly high.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine owning like a small fourplex apartment building.
Right.
And the local municipality abruptly doubles property taxes to cover some random budget shortfall. Suddenly, your profit margin completely vanishes. You are operating at a loss.
It's devastating.
The system feels rigged against you.
Yeah.
So the immediate temptation is to start running personal expenses through the building's maintenance budget just to survive.
And the response in the chat thread to this exact type of scenario is fascinating. One of the participants takes an ancient religious concept and applies it directly to this modern financial portfolio.
Yeah.
The concept they invoke is hijra.
I want to spend some time on this because this reframing is brilliant. Historically, hijra refers to physical migration, right?
Yes, historically it means removing oneself from an unfavorable or oppressive situation to a favorable one. It usually refers to physically migrating to a new city or country to escape persecution and practice your beliefs freely.
Okay.
But the source applies this principle as a financial strategy. The participant in the chat advises if a specific real estate tax is an unbearable burden, keep away. Invest in something else. That is hijra.
That is a staggering pivot. So hijra isn't just about packing your bags and moving your family across borders to escape oppression. It can literally mean migrating your investment portfolio.
Exactly. Migrating your capital.
If the local real estate tax situation is unjust and making it impossible to operate honestly, you don't stay in the trap and break your own morals to survive. You sell the building.
Yeah.
You migrate your resources into a transparent index fund, or you move your business to a different state with a favorable system. That is a beautiful way to look at financial strategy.
It transforms a moral restriction, the inability to lie into a dynamic strategic advantage. Think about the cognitive energy a person expends trying to invent a loophole, maintain two sets of books, and hide assets.
Oh, it must be exhausting.
It is, and we've established that it causes severe internal damage. The concept of financial hydra redirects all of that trapped energy. You use it to find a better lawful environment for your resources.
It completely shifts power back to the individual. You aren't a victim of the tax code, and you aren't a hypocrite sneaking around it. You are an active strategist deciding where your capital is best treated.
Yes.
It takes the problem from how do I cheat this system to how do I deploy my resources in a system that rewards honesty.
And that beautifully synthesizes the entire journey of these sources. The texts argue from start to finish that truthfulness is an unconditional reality.
Right.
Justice is not a sliding scale dependent on your affection for the government. Cheating the system, even by a fraction, is giving short measure, and the ultimate victim of that short measure is your own cognitive health.
For our listeners who are constantly absorbing information, trying to make the best decisions in their careers and personal lives, this ancient framework is surprisingly modern in its utility.
It really is.
We live in a world of absolute information overload, navigating incredibly complex corporate structures, tax codes, and digital systems. It is just exhausting.
Well, having a fixed internal standard dramatically simplifies your decision-making process.
Right.
You don't have to constantly run the exhausting mental calculus of, well, does this specific client deserve my full honesty today? Did this vendor treat me fairly last week? Does this government agency waste my money?
You completely remove the other party from the equation.
Yeah.
Your honesty is entirely about protecting your own integrity. You are maintaining your own clear judgment. You aren't being honest as a favor to the state. You are being honest to protect yourself from casting that veil over your own heart.
This raises an important question, though. It all comes back to the trust, the amana. The numbers on the spreadsheet are just the surface. What you are actually balancing is your internal state.
Based on everything we've unpacked today, if our financial choices and our moral framework are so deeply intertwined and minor justified deceptions cause invisible epistemic damage that slowly blinds us, it really makes you wonder about the rest of our lives. How many of our daily clever workarounds, whether that's finding a shortcut in a business negotiation, manipulating an algorithm in new tech, or even telling small white lies in our personal relationships, are actually slowly eroding our ability to see truth clearly? Next time you are hunting for a loophole, you have to ask yourself, what is the actual currency I'm using to buy this shortcut?